Beer here back in the Fantasy Bar, week 10 on tap. 6 of my favorite plays ready for you to go on FanDuel and DraftKings, including a quarterback, wide receiver pairing under 11,000 on DraftKings, a value tight end in a smash matchup, couple mid-range wide receivers and running backs, and a beast of the week. And a lot of you guys have written off and said I'm done with. Who are we talking about? Only one way to find out. It's time to belly up to the Fantasy Bar. Welcome in, guys. Week 10 edition Beers Daily Fantasy Six-Pack. Welcome back to the Fantasy Bar. Got 6 of my favorite plays ready for you to go here on FanDuel and DraftKings. Thank you, as always, for stopping by and checking out this week's video. Before we get to the plays, the housekeeping first thing, most important thing, and you guys have been doing great with this, thumbs up button. Take a second, click that. Really helps us out here in the Fantasy Bar over on YouTube. So thank you again for that. Also, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and check us out over at scoresandodds.com/beer. Last thing, Sim Labs, brand new tool over on RotoGrinders. Make sure you go check it out, free for a limited time. Runs all the simulations of the games. Very easy to use and build lineups with. So go over there, rotogrinders.com/simlabs, and check it out for free for a limited time. All right, let's get into the plays here for week 10. We're back with buys. So 10 games on the slate. We've narrowed it down to my 6 favorite plays. All right, let's start at the wide receiver position this week with Kirk of the Jaguars. So love this matchup here. We know the Niners, very good defense, but not very good against passing games and specifically against wide receivers. Now you have his teammate, Calvin Ridley, a little bit cheaper, also going to be likely 2 to 3 times more popular here than Kirk. So I like them both in this matchup, but I love the spot for the much lower owned Kirk here. San Francisco, as we mentioned, really struggling with receivers. 4th most receptions allowed on the season. Also the 4th most fantasy points given up to this position. We don't have a lot of massive totals on this slate. 45, one of the highest that we have here in this game. Close spread here. I think we get a close competitive game with the Jaguars at home here, and I'm expecting success through the air here, especially for Kirk against this Niners secondary. All right, next up, a running back I think is going to go overlooked in his pricing tier. We're talking Aaron Jones of Green Bay. So Matt LaFleur comes out, said we're going to unleash Aaron Jones. They certainly did that last week. Season highs in carries with 20 touches, with 24 and opportunities with 26, 6 targets in the passing game here. And we look at his price range of running backs, and some early ownership numbers show many guys that are going to be much higher owned than Aaron Jones in this pricing tier. Joe Mixon at home against Houston. You got Rashad White, potentially the highest owned running back on this slate. Kenneth Walker in a good spot against Washington. So a nice GPP spot here for Aaron Jones, a guy that's going to get both carries and targets in the passing game. And the way you attack this Pittsburgh defense is certainly with the running back. 7th most fantasy points allowed to this position. 4th most rushing yards per game allowed to this team. Another close spread here in Pittsburgh. I think Green Bay hangs in, and mainly on the back of Aaron Jones. All right, let's go to tight end next. This one kind of shocked me with the low ownership here. The forgotten man in Houston. We're talking Dalton Schultz. So everyone's fired up about CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, Nico Collins, but the man they're forgetting about here, maybe the main guy in this passing game, and that's Dalton Schultz. We can get low ownership here. Let's do that. We're going to talk about the matchup here in just a second. Doesn't get much better than a matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals for tight ends. But let's focus on Schultz. Touchdowns now in 4 of the last 5 games, averaging over 8 targets per game here over the last month. So really involved with CJ Stroud in this passing game. And we mentioned Cincinnati, been a disaster against tight ends. 4th most receiving yards allowed, 2nd most touchdowns allowed in all of football. And no team in the NFL has allowed more fantasy points to the tight end position than the Cincinnati Bengals. So should be a potential shootout here. One of the higher totals on this slate. Dalton Schultz checking in under 5% ownership as of this recording, taking advantage all day long with Dalton Schultz against the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, let's stay in the mid-range at quarterback with Sam Howell of Washington. So Howell continues to show a very nice ceiling here for us in the mid-range here. 722 passing yards for him over the last 2 games alone. We know a guy can get it done on the ground as well with his legs. Another game with one of those highest totals sitting around 45 here. Commanders, 6-point underdogs. So the likely game flow here is Washington playing from behind. Sam Howell throwing the ball running the ball, racking up fantasy points for our DFS lineup. Seattle has had issues with quarterbacks, bottom half of the league in fantasy points allowed, but even more importantly, they've really struggled with rushing quarterbacks, giving up the 6th most rushing yards to this position on the season here. So a guy racking it up through the air, on the ground, likely gets Curtis Samuel back in the lineup here this week as well, and likely playing from behind here in a matchup with Seattle as 6-point underdogs. Sign me up. Sam Howell, my favorite quarterback for week 10. All right, we like Sam Howell. Who we pairing him up with? We're rolling wide receiver, Johan Doson. Now, no issues with Terry McLaurin. Figures you guys were sick of seeing Terry McLaurin in the video. Don't even hate a double stack here, potentially using Curtis Samuel if he's in the lineup as well. But Dotson really coming back to life here over the last couple weeks, and the prices simply don't reflect that. $5,000 on DraftKings, probably $600, $700, $800 too cheap. So a nice buy low here, 26 targets for him over the last 3 games, has found the end zone in each of the last 2 games here in Seattle. We talked about their struggles with quarterbacks, been even worse against wide receivers here, bottom 10 in the league in receptions allowed to this position, and most importantly, in fantasy points allowed to this position. So Dotson on the rise, price is too low. Washington likely throwing a ton here. Johan Doson, one of my favorite wideouts for week 10. All right, it's time. Take a look at my favorite play for week 10. Before we do that, let's continue our Beast of the Week contest. Easy to play. All you got to do, take a second, click that thumbs up button, and head to the comment section and guess fantasy points on DraftKings for my Beast of the Week. Whoever's got the closest guess, we're going to give you an absolutely free month of RotoGrinders Premium NFL just for hanging out in the fantasy bar. And while you're down there, get that guess in. I also want to know, who's your favorite play? You can narrow it down to anybody you want. Who is your Beast of the Week on this Week 10 slate? Sound off in that YouTube comment section. All right, let's wrap this baby up with my favorite play. You know, Mass, the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We owe you one more running back. I promised you a guy a lot of you guys have written off, and the stats certainly don't like him, but I love the spot here for running back Tony Pollard of the Cowboys, this week's Beast of the Week. So public sentiment combining with a lot of analytics showing how down Tony Pollard has been should be a nice ownership discount here on him this week. And what a spot we get against the New York Giants. I mean, absolutely perfect spot for the Cowboys to get this guy rolling. They are 16.5-point favorites in this game. I know the passing game has taken over here with Dak, CeeDee Lamb and company, but I think this smash spot here for Tony Pollard. Giants not been good against the running back position. 6th most fantasy points allowed on the season of running backs. 3rd most rushing yards allowed. And best game of the season for Tony Pollard came back in week 1 against this very New York Giants defense. 2 touchdowns in that game. I think he does it here again. Not only finds the end zone, which seems like it's been forever, but does it twice. Tony Pollard absolutely smashes. I think he's the highest scoring running back on this slate. Easily my favorite play on the board in this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it for week 10 here in the Fantasy Bar. As always, any comments, questions, or feedback, hit me up in that comment section right below the video. Are you with me on Tony Pollard? Or if I've been starting to drink a little too early here, rolling with Tony Pollard, let me know in that YouTube comment section. Also, can follow me over on Twitter at Beermakersfan. Don't forget, thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you have not already. Check out scoresandodds.com/beer for all of your sports betting needs. And check out RotoGrinders.com/SimLabs. Brand new tool over there. You're going to love it. Super easy to use. Go and check that out. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck here in week 10, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist